Every single time I sit down to record, Steve's got to bang on the door. Hold on, dude. And of course, Slappy. Perfect. Hey, and welcome back to AJN Checkpoint Extras. And by now, you know the deal. These are the little bonus drops that sneak in between our bigger episodes. Smaller in scope, but jammed packed with nostalgia. And since it's spooky season, or honestly, when isn't it? I wanted to pull a book right off the childhood shelf. The one that taught a whole generation of 90s kids how to love being scared. You know the name. You saw that slime drip logo at every book fair. Today, we're diving headfirst into Goosebumps, how R.L. Stine built a paperback empire, how those covers hypnotized us, and how safe scares helped shape who we became. So grab your flashlight, zip up your starter jacket, and meet me in the haunted gymnasium of the Scholastic Book Fair. Let's crack this thing open. It's 1996. Elementary school gymnasium. The air smells like pencil shaving, sweat, and that plastic tarp Scholastic always used to cover the floor. Tables everywhere. Glitter pens, scented erasers, Animorphs posters, and right there in the center under those buzzing fluorescent lights, the Goosebumps rack. Neon slime dripping off those black spines, skeletons surfing, haunted masks glowing radioactive green. Titles daring you to grab them. Say Cheese and Die, Night of the Living Dummy, Monster Blood. If you were a 90s kid, you remember. That wasn't just a book display, that was an event. That was where a whole generation learned what fear felt like. Safely. So who was the mad scientist behind the slime? Robert Lawrence Stine. R.L. Stine if you were cool. Jovial Bob if you met him back in the day. Yeah, before he scared the crap out of us kids, he wrote joke books. Literally. 101 vacation jokes for kids. Booger jokes for the bus ride. The guy was a humorist who stumbled into horror the way you trip and fall down a flight of stairs into a haunted basement. Then in '89, he creates Fear Street, teen horror, babysitters in peril, small town slashers, actual body counts. Scholastic saw the numbers and go, Bob, can you make these but for the younger crowd, minus the corpses? And in July of 1992, welcome to Dead House. Nobody expected it to blow up, but by 1995, 4 million copies a month. That's not bestseller, that's Beatlemania with paperbacks. Scholastic's own reports said Goosebumps accounted for 15% of their entire company revenue. When sales dipped a few years later, their profits tanked 40%. Goosebumps wasn't a product line. It was life support. So what made it work? Why these books and not the dozen copycats that popped up after? First, the pacing. 2-page chapters. You could burn through one before the bus ever hit your stop. Each ended with a cliffhanger that lied to your face. The hand grabbed my shoulder. Next page, it was just my brother holding a sandwich. You got punked every time, and you loved it. Secondly, the voice. Kid narrators. Not heroic, not perfect, just ordinary, snarky, slightly clueless. Basically, us. When weird stuff hit them, it felt like it could happen to you. And third, the twist. R.L. Stine promised a surprise ending every time, and he delivered. Sometimes genius, sometimes pure dad joke, but you always flipped that last page waiting for the sucker punch. He cranked 2,000 words a day, 2 weeks per book, 62 mainline Goosebumps in 5 years, plus spin-offs, Fear Street, Give Yourself Goosebumps, Tales to Give You Goosebumps. The man was his own publishing ecosystem. But here's the secret ingredient nobody talks about. They were kinda funny. Half the reason kids could handle the scares is because Stine winked at you between the lines. He let you giggle, then boo, right after. So let's hit some of the classic heavyweights. The Haunted Mask. Carly Beth puts on a Halloween mask that melts into her face. Legit body horror for grade schoolers. That one scared kids so bad it became the first TV two-parter episode. Night of the Living Dummy. Slappy enters stage left, wooden menace, snark for days. And he's still the franchise mascot 30 years later. Say Cheese and Die. Cursed camera shows doom. That cover, skeletons at a cookout, freaked me out. I had the holographic bookmark that moved, stared at it for hours, it felt like, waiting for one of those skeletons just to wave at me. Monster Blood. Growing green slime. Basically Nickelodeon Gak with a vengeance. Peak 90s science experiment gone wrong vibes. The Werewolf of Fever Swamp. Atmospheric, tragic, maybe the best written out of the entire bunch. But my personal favorite, The Knight in Screaming Armor. Haunted knights, medieval curses, glowing swords. Pure adventure horror. That book was my jam. I read it until the cover curled at the edges. And that's the thing. Every kid had their Goosebumps. For some, it was Attack of the Mutant, comic book meta weirdness. For others, piano lessons can be murder, or It Came from Beneath the Sink. The series was a buffet of safe scares. You just had to pick your flavor of nightmare. Now let's talk book fair, because this is where Goosebumps stopped being just paperbacks and became currency. You walk into the gym, the metal racks squeak when you spin them. Tim Jacobus's art hits you like a blacklight poster. Neon purples, toxic greens, haunted blues. He painted nearly 100 covers, all acrylic, one a week. The man basically color-coded our childhood nightmares. And me? Oh man, the book fair loved me. I was the kid funding Scholastic's pizza parties. Every new Goosebumps, into the basket. If there was merch, it came home. Posters, bookmarks, glow-in-the-dark slime pens. If it had that logo, it was mine. My mom, she dreaded the book fair week. She'd see that order form come home and just sigh because she knew I was about to hit her up for cash like a tiny mobster. But she never said no. She saw me reading. She saw the passion. So even if it cost her a 20, she'd grin and say, "All right, pick 2. Spoiler, I always found a way to get 4. Book fairs were our Comic-Cons. You'd trade books like baseball cards. I'll swap you Ghost Beach for Deep Trouble, but you gotta throw in a holographic sticker. Boom, deal done. Contract sealed in cafeteria milk cartons. And those covers were hypnotic. Even kids who didn't buy just stood there flipping pages. And the librarians always pretended to scold us for reading without paying, but come on, they loved it too. For once, every kid wanted to read something. Goosebumps turned literacy into a playground flex. And you know where half of us actually read these? On the bus. Window fogged up, seat vinyl squeaking every time you hit a pothole, and you're speed reading because your stop is coming up and you're 3 pages from a cliffhanger. And there was always that one kid, every bus had one, who read the books backwards from the end just to spoil the twist. Menace to society. Future supervillain. I used to wedge a finger in the last chapter just in case the bus hit a speed bump and I dropped the book. Priorities, man. Homework could wait. Carly Beth couldn't. And bringing that brand new paperback into class, instant status. You'd lay it on your desk like a trophy. Somebody would ask, "Dude, can I borrow it after you're done?" And you'd be like, "Sure, man," while mentally drafting a contract about no spine cracks and no lunch stains. And we've got to give Tim Jacobus his flowers. The cover wizard, man. Acrylic on canvas, one painting a week, no hard outlines. Just these glowy gradients that made skeletons look kinda chill. He'd hide tiny visual jokes. I'm serious. Go back and look. You'll spot them. Those covers did more marketing than any TV ad could. You didn't read a Goosebumps first. You wanted it first. And selling want to kids is the whole game. I still remember picking up Say Cheese and Die and just staring. Tilt the holographic bookmark, tilt the book, tilt my head, like that would change the ending. It never did, of course, but it changed me. It made books feel like toys in the best way possible. Now, of course, anything that popular draws some heat. By '94, Goosebumps had landed on the American Library Association's Most Challenged Books list. Some parents were convinced the books were too scary, too negative, maybe even satanic. Some church groups called them gateways to evil. One librarian got 50 complaint letters in a single week. A Florida school district banned them for psychological harm. Meanwhile, every kid in that district suddenly wanted them more than ever. The irony of it all? The books were so clean nobody even died in them. The scariest thing in most of them was a rubber mask. But fear makes people do funny things. I remember hearing about a school board meeting where a parent actually stood up and said, "These books are going to haunt our kids' dreams." And all I could think was, yeah, dude, that's kind of the point. Dreams are where you sandbox fear. Dreams are the free DLC. Meanwhile, my mom was in the back like, if he's reading, he's fine. That's the split, right? Some folks want to protect kids from feeling fear. My mom wanted me to learn how to handle fear. My mom never bought into the panic. She handed me the haunted mask and said if he's reading, he's learning something. While some parents were staging book burnings, mine was handing me flashlight batteries. And R.L. Stine laughed it all off. He said at the time, kids like to laugh before they scream. And that's it. That's the whole formula. Adults were terrified of what Goosebumps might do to us. But we were learning to control fear while they were out there feeding it. And that cycle has never stopped. Every generation has its monster of the month. In the 90s, it was Goosebumps. Today, it's TikTok, horror games, and creepypastas. Different villain, same panic. Now, while the parents panicked, the rest of pop culture went full tilt into Goosebumps. There were TV commercials screaming, "Reader beware, you're in for a scare." Glow-in-the-dark pens, holographic posters, Burger King toys, book clubs mailed out Monster of the Month surveys. Halloween aisles turned into Goosebumps shrines. Costumes, board games, trading cards, even a short-lived video game. Stine's monsters were everywhere. And do you remember the thermocolor t-shirts that were supposed to change with your body heat? Mine just did a faint blotch like I lost a fight with a highlighter. The trading cards smelled like cheap printer ink and victory. The board game made up rules mid-play like it was Slappy in disguise. At the end of the day, none of it mattered. The brand was a password. If you knew Slappy, we were friends. And of course, imitators followed. Bone chillers, graveyard schools, spine tinglers. They tried to copy the recipe, but forgot the secret ingredient: humor. Without the laughs, the scares just felt mean. For a solid few years, Goosebumps outsold everything. It was kind of like the MCU of our generation, a shared universe of safe scares. We all knew the characters, the logo, the tone. It was cultural glue. You didn't ask, have you read Goosebumps? You asked, which one? And in 1995, Fox Kids, or YTV in the Great White North, Goosebumps goes live action. And man, that intro. A guy's walking down a windy street, his briefcase burst open, pages whip through the air, the Goosebumps letters blow across the screen, and then the dog's eyes flash neon yellow. That eerie synth line hits, all moody and mysterious, and you're immediately 10 years old again, sitting cross-legged on the carpet with a bowl of microwave popcorn. No show needed to go that hard, but they did. And it's still one of the best intros of the entire 90s kids TV era. Right up there with Are You Afraid of the Dark and Tales from the Crypt. The perfect cocktail of creepy and cool. Scary enough to make you glance at the hallway, but not enough to make you sleep with a nightlight. And for me, the pipeline was sacred. Backpack drop, snack, Goosebumps, homework, allegedly. On Halloween week, double feature, man. Goosebumps first, get the giggles and jumps, then Are You Afraid of the Dark, to haunt you a little bit more. It was like a dose, first the sugar rush, then the slow burn campfire. And the show ran for 4 seasons, 74 episodes, all filmed in and around Toronto. And you can feel that Canadian autumn in every frame. Misty woods, gray skies, crunchy leaves. Even the kids had that unmistakable Canadian accent. Soft vowels, polite terror, like, oh no, there's a monster, eh? Budget-wise, this wasn't Hollywood money. This was hope we can reuse that mask next week money. Foam latex and fog machines did all the heavy lifting. But that was part of the charm. It felt tactile. You could tell those monsters were rubber and sweat and elbow grease, not pixels. And because of that, it felt real in a way modern CGI sometimes doesn't. The Haunted Mask 2-parter was the event episode. They hyped it up like a mini movie. Carly Beth's mask melting into her skin, nightmare fuel. The prosthetics were better than they had any right to be, and it's still kind of iconic. Say Cheese and Die, starring a young pre-Ken era Ryan Gosling, looking perpetually confused and photogenic at the same time. The guy who sang City of Stars once screamed over a cursed Polaroid camera. Kinda perfect. Night of the Living Dummy 2, Slappy's true TV coronation. The puppeteering is both janky and terrifying. You can see the strings, literally, but it doesn't matter. Every tilt of his head said, I'm about to ruin somebody's life. Slappy was Goosebumps. The Werewolf of Fever Swamp, cinematic from start to finish. Fog, moonlight, mood, still holds up. And my personal favorite, One Day in Horrorland. Creepy amusement park, monsters and ticket booths, twisted games, perfect ending. That episode is Goosebumps. Campy, creepy, and fun. For a 90s kid, Goosebumps wasn't just a show. It was an event. Friday night, you survived a week of school. You grab a soda, kill the lights, and wait for that theme song to hit. The living room flickers green, the title slams, and for 22 minutes, you're somewhere else. You didn't need gore or explosions, just fog, a narrator, and that vibe. Halloween on demand before streaming even existed. And remember, if you missed it, dude, so every episode felt like treasure. We talk about it Monday like breaking news. Did you see the one with the camera? Bro, the dummy talked! That shared moment, that's what made it special. The show was produced by Protocol Entertainment and Scholastic Productions. They shot multiple episodes at once to stretch the budget. Sometimes the same kid played 2 different characters in one season. Same park, different angle. Didn't matter. They leaned into the cheese. You could tell the crew loved what they were making, and that sincerity bleeds through the screen even now, all these years later. Rewatching it on DVD or streaming it on the new Scholastic app, you can feel that nostalgia in every frame. The static, the bad ADR, the awkward freeze frame endings, all of it feels like a warm blanket that smells faintly of latex monster suit. And here's the thing, the show worked because it understood the assignment. It didn't try to modernize the books or talk down to kids. It took the weird little paperbacks we loved and made them breathe. It showed us that horror didn't have to be R-rated to be thrilling, that sometimes the scariest stories were the ones told with a little wink. For a generation too young for Freddy Krueger but too old for Barney, Goosebumps filled the gap perfectly. It wasn't prestige TV by any stretch of the imagination, but it was comfort horror. Mac and cheese for your inner ghoul. It proved you could laugh, shiver, and learn to love being scared, all before bedtime. So yeah, the acting was cheesy, the effects were foam latex and fog machines, but man, that show was lightning in a bottle. It was Friday nights, popcorn, and imagination. You didn't need gore, just that theme song and a 22-minute jolt of spooky magic. Now, you can't talk 90s kids horror without bumping into the other monster in the room. Are You Afraid of the Dark? The two shows felt like cousins. Goosebumps was the wild neon paperback you read under your covers, and Are You Afraid of the Dark was the campfire story your older cousins swore was true. Both hit at the perfect time, right when we were old enough to crave a little danger, but still young enough to need the lights on afterward. You'd finish an episode of Goosebumps, grab a snack, and Nickelodeon would come in with that whispery voice, submitted for the approval. And just like that, we'd be handing our Saturday night over to the Midnight Society. The difference was tone. Goosebumps was comic book horror, bright colors, monster of the week energy, jump scares with a little wink. Are You Afraid of the Dark was moody. It lingered. It wasn't afraid of sad endings or, heck, even letting a kid actually lose sometimes. If Goosebumps taught us to laugh before we screamed, Are You Afraid of the Dark taught us that not every story ends with daylight. One gave us safe fear, the other taught us to sit in the dark for a minute and listen. And that's why the 90s were pure magic. You could get both in the same weekend. Friday night, Fox Kids for slime and jump scares. Saturday night, Nickelodeon for slow burns and urban legends. They balanced each other out. Goosebumps got you excited for monsters. Are You Afraid of the Dark made you wonder if maybe one of those monsters was real. So, next week, we're giving that show its own spotlight. The Midnight Society deserves its meeting, and I'll be bringing marshmallows and trauma for everybody. But for now, let's stay in the pages a little longer, because before we talk about sitting by the fire, we need to talk about how Goosebumps taught us to keep a cool head when the story got scary. Now, have you ever sat and really thought about what Goosebumps did for us? It wasn't just about monsters jumping out of closets. It was practice, emotional sparring. You'd read a chapter, the door creaked open, something moved, and your heart would start beating. You slam the book shut, stare at the ceiling, breathe. Then that little voice in your head said, "Hey dude, you're fine. Open it up and let's go again." So you did. And guess what? You were braver than you were 2 minutes ago. That's called rehearsal fear. Psychologists call it controlled exposure. You face danger while knowing you're completely safe. And for a kid in the 90s, that was priceless. The world already had enough real fear. Dare assembly meetings, stranger danger PSAs, the evening news. Goosebumps gave you a way to own fear instead of letting fear own you. If you've ever done a roller coaster, you already know the psychology. Your body says, dude, we're dying. But your brain says, dude, we paid for this. Goosebumps is that, but portable. Every cliffhanger is a micro panic with a built-in parachute. You learn to land, laugh, and then go again. That loop builds confidence. It's silly to say a paperback can make you braver until you watch a kid close the book, smile to themselves, and sleep just fine. And for me, my mom never once banned those books. She encouraged them. She saw the stack on my nightstand and said, if he's reading, he's learning. Every new release, Yeah, she'd sigh, hand me a $10 bill, and remind me to finish my homework first. That tiny green light fueled a whole obsession. My favorites were the Give Yourself Goosebump ones. The Choose Your Own Adventure books where every page turn could either kill you or crown you the conquering hero. Those weren't just paperbacks, they were world building drills. Every choice taught me something about creativity, consequence, and calm. Because sooner or later, you have to learn. The bad thing can't hurt you if you stay cool. Panic's the trap. Composure is the cheat code. And that idea stuck in my head. Now, when real world chaos hits, I've got a little cool hand Luke energy. I breathe. I plan. I survive. And yeah, weirdly enough, it kinda started with Goosebumps. Now, once I'd read every Goosebumps the book fair could throw at me, I needed stronger stuff. I graduated to Fear Street, the teenage cousin who never pulled their punches. Blood, heartbreak, small town murder mysteries, that was my gateway drug. And then came the big leap. One library visit, I wandered past the kids section and saw this thick book with a clown on the cover. It, by Stephen King. The librarian looked at me like, "You sure about that one, champ?" And yeah, buddy, I was sure. Goosebumps handed me the flashlight. Stephen King showed me the rest of the house. Different scale, same thrill. King's worlds were darker, messier, but familiar. Because Stine had already trained my brain to enjoy being scared. My first King, It, and I was not ready. Half the references went completely over my head, but the feeling didn't. That creeping dread like fog under the door. I didn't bounce off of it, I slowed down. I learned to read differently. Patient, curious, watching the shadows in the sentences. And that muscle started with Goosebumps. King just made it lift heavier. I owe Goosebumps for that discovery. Without it, I might never have found The Shining, or Pet Sematary, or Salem's Lot. Goosebumps was the starter quest. Stephen King was the main campaign. And if you think about it, R.L. Stine and Stephen King are not opposites. They're part of the same ecosystem. Stine taught kids how to read horror. King showed adults why we keep coming back. Different tones, same heartbeat. Then the 2010s rolled around and Goosebumps went Hollywood. In 2015, Jack Black steps in as R.L. Stine. Meta as all hell. Stine's monsters literally burst out of his own manuscripts. Slappy's driving the plot. The abominable snowman smashing grocery stores. The haunted mask is back in business. It raked in $150 million at the box office. And not bad for a property that started as a kid's paperback line. 2018 gave us Haunted Halloween. Smaller budget, smaller box office. Same vibe. Like Halloween candy left in the freezer a little too long, but still sweet all the same. Critics said, meh, but kids loved it. Adults got nostalgia whiplash. Mission accomplished. And it wasn't just movies. There was Goosebumps video games, PC point-and-click adventures, a Game Boy Color title, even a VR escape room years later. Board games, lunchboxes, t-shirts, even a short comic series in the mid-2000s. The brand evolved like one of its own monsters. Every decade, a new form. 2023 brought the Disney Plus Hulu reboot. Modern teen mystery energy, a little Riverdale, a little Stranger Things. Then the Vanishing season in 2025 with David Schwimmer as a small-town sheriff. Decent numbers, decent reviews. Classic streaming cancellation. But Goosebumps never really dies. It just waits for the next full moon and climbs back out again. So why does Goosebumps still hit in 2025? Because it belonged to us. We found it. We traded it. We read it under covers with flashlights. It wasn't assigned by teachers or recommended by our parents. It was ours. Goosebumps was the first time a lot of us felt like readers by choice, not by chore. It taught imagination. It rewarded your curiosity. It whispered, you can face something scary and come out smiling. And that's a hell of a message for a bunch of 9-year-olds. For me, it sparked everything. My love of stories, my calm under pressure, my fascination with the weird corners of pop culture. It's the DNA of everything I make now, from this podcast down to the Nerdoween specials. Goosebumps was the sandbox. It's where I learned to build monsters and, weirdly enough, to manage my own anxiety. It turned fear into something fun, creative, and controllable. I still see Goosebumps in October storefronts. New print runs, fresh covers, same black spine swagger. And every time I see that logo, I get that book fair shiver. Smell of paper, the buzz of lights, my mom telling me to pick 2, and me leaving with 4. It's not just nostalgia, it's recognition. That series helped wire my brain for curiosity and calm, and that's a gift you always keep. When you zoom out, Goosebumps sits at the perfect crossroads. Before it, kids had scary stories to tell in the dark. Awesome, grotesque, but niche. After it, we got Harry Potter, Percy Jackson, whole fantasy empires. Goosebumps was the bridge. It proved a mass market kid series could hit blockbuster numbers. It also democratized horror. You didn't need to sneak your parents' Nightmare on Elm Street VHS anymore. You could just buy Terror for $3.99 with a Scholastic sticker on it. That's genius. And it never really stopped evolving. 62 originals, 57 Give Yourself Goosebumps, multiple Horrorland and Most Wanted lines, 400 million copies sold in 32 languages. That's not nostalgia. That's an institution. It changed people like me. Favorite book, The Knight in Screaming Armor. Favorite episode, One Day in Horrorland. Cover that haunted me, Say Cheese and Die. And yes, I still remember that holographic bookmark sliding in the light. Goosebumps was my gateway drug to storytelling itself. It taught me that fear is never something to avoid. It's something to explore. It's curiosity with goosebumps. Without those paperbacks, I don't know if I'd ever have gone down the rabbit holes that built this whole show to begin with. They made me a reader, a creator, a horror nerd who still grins when the organ hits and the lights dim. And Joe's, that's Goosebumps. If this unlocked a memory, do me a favor. Follow the show, drop a review, and in it, tell me your first Goosebumps book, or the one that pushed you into Fear Street or Stephen King. I'll read a few of your stories on a future Nerdoween episode. Goosebumps gave us permission to be scared, and that permission changed us. It made a bunch of us 90s kids fall in love with reading, monsters, and creativity. And it's one of the reasons why, decades later, I'm here behind this mic telling stories about the things that scared us and the things that shaped us. And that's going to do it for another installment of AJN Checkpoint Extra. Huge thanks for hanging out and flipping through the pages with me. Shout out to my player 2 for always letting me chase these weird passions and for surviving every random, hey, you remember this? And shout out to Cap. I've come a long way since talking to you about possibly doing this, huh, brother? And big love to my brother, holding the AJN fort down while I record and obsess over foam latex monsters. And Pickle, if you're hitting up the book fair this year, dude, grab me a holographic bookmark and maybe a grape scented eraser. You know the drill. And most of all, shout out to all of you, everyone listening, sharing, rating, reviewing, and just being a part of this growing nerd collective. Every follow, every comment, every story you send in, it keeps this whole thing alive. If you dug this one, be sure to hit that follow button and drop a review. And I'll see all of you next week for Nerdoween Week 2. Stay gold, nerd bold, and stay spooky. Oh, God damn it. You have got to be kidding me. I literally just rapped the outro. Steve, how in the fuck do you accidentally summon a homicidal ventriloquist dummy? Oh, you were just trying to boost engagement. Figured we needed a guest appearance, and he liked my respect for the franchise so much he's off to torment someone named Pickle? Huh. Well, maybe he can teach him some ventrilo etiquette.